Please don't come to my sister's wedding. My wife looked me in the eye and said, not because we were fighting, not because I'd done anything wrong, but because she was ashamed of me. That was the moment everything changed. The moment I realized the woman I loved had already written me out of her story and buried me in a lie I didn't see coming. My name is Daniel Hayes. I've been the head custodian at one of the tallest office towers downtown for over a decade. No fancy degree, no private office, no designer shoes. But every morning I walk through those polished glass doors, mop in hand, and make sure every corner of that place gleams. I take pride in it, because it's honest work, because it's mine. Vanessa, my wife of 7 years, used to say she admired that. Used to smile when I came home sweaty and tired. Used to touch my face and tell me I smelled like soap and steel. But lately, that light in her eyes had faded. That night, she came in late. I heard her before I saw her, heels clicking sharply against the hardwood floor like a metronome of tension. She didn't say hello, didn't glance my way, just set her purse on the counter like it weighed 1,000 pounds and stared out the window, arms folded tight across her chest. Her reflection looked like a stranger. "You okay?" I asked, dry my hands. "Rough shift." She didn't answer. I stepped closer, the towel still in my hands. "Vanessa." She finally turned, and the look she gave me chilled the room. Her eyes were flat, cold, like all the warmth had been drained out of her. She opened her mouth slowly, like each word hurt to say. "Don't come to Michelle's wedding." I blinked. "What?" Her voice was calm, measured, like she'd rehearsed this in her head 100 times. I said, "I don't want you at the wedding." I laughed, a short, awkward bark of disbelief. "Is this some kind of joke?" I already RSVP'd, got the suit ready and everything. She sighed, eyes rolling slightly like I was the child in the room. "Daniel, don't make this harder than it has to be." Now the knot in my stomach twisted tighter. "What the hell are you talking about?" I asked, my voice quieter now, but sharper. She looked me dead in the eye, and that's when she said it. "I don't want people to know you're just a janitor." The words didn't hit like a slap. No, they sank in slow like poison. Just a janitor. I stared at her, speechless. My mouth opened, but no words came out. Because what do you say to the woman who's supposed to love you when she tells you your entire existence is something she's embarrassed by? I've never hidden what I do. I finally managed. I work hard. I take care of us. "I know," she said quickly, looking away. "I know, but my family, they'll talk. Michelle's marrying into the Lancaster family. They're old money. Big name. Everyone will be there. She paused, biting her lip. "I don't want the attention. The questions." That's when I realized she wasn't ashamed of the job. She was ashamed of me. "Then what do you want me to say?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "That I'm working? That I'm sick?" She hesitated, then looked at me, dead serious. "I'll say you're dead." Silence. I felt the world tilt slightly under my feet. A low ringing in my ears drowned out the city noise. She might as well have driven a knife straight through my chest. "You'll what?" "I'll tell them you died years ago. In an accident. It's cleaner that way. Less awkward." I couldn't breathe. "You'd rather bury me than admit you married a man with a mop in his hand?" I whispered. "I need this weekend to go well," she replied, like that explained everything. I stepped back, my hand on the counter for balance. My chest ached like I'd been sucker punched. Vanessa didn't flinch. She was already halfway across the room. Pulling off her earrings like this was just another evening. It was over. Not with a fight, not with screams, but with the quiet shattering of 1,000 memories I thought meant something. I didn't yell, didn't curse her out. I just stood there as the love of my life declared me unfit for public display. And for the first time since we met, I believed her. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on the couch, staring at the cracks in our ceiling, listening to the soft ticking of the wall clock and the occasional groan of pipes behind the walls. Vanessa didn't come back into the living room after she dropped that bomb. She just closed the bedroom door like we were strangers renting the same space. It wasn't just what she said, it was how easily she said it. Like burying me wasn't a betrayal but a convenience. A line on a guest list. A minor cleanup in the story of her perfect, presentable life. I kept replaying her words in my head, trying to find a version where she didn't mean them the way they sounded. But the truth was raw and simple. Vanessa didn't want me anymore. Not the real me. She wanted the absence of me. When the sun rose, pale and gray through the blinds, I made up my mind. There was no dramatic goodbye, no final plea to make her see me again. That part of me, the man who believed love could fix anything, had been buried right alongside the fake story she was telling her family. I walked into the bedroom and opened the closet. My duffel bag sat on the top shelf, half-zipped from the last camping trip we never took. I pulled it down, its fabric stiff with disuse, and began packing. Flannel shirts, work boots, jeans. A photo of my dad tucked in my sock drawer, the one where he's holding me up on his shoulders at a county fair. I tossed it in without thinking. Every piece of clothing, every item, felt heavier than it should have. Not because of the fabric, but because of what they represented. Years of memories, quiet mornings, Sunday coffee, movie nights, all packed into a single, lumpy bag. Vanessa never said a word. She was sitting on the bed when I zipped the bag shut. Her arms were crossed, her expression unreadable. She didn't look sad, didn't look relieved, just blank. I paused at the door, glancing at her one last time. "This is what you want?" I asked quietly. She didn't answer, didn't even look at me, just turned her face toward the window. I nodded to myself, opened the door, and stepped into the hallway. The soft click of the door behind me sounded more final than any scream could have. Outside, the air was cold and biting. I walked. No destination. Just moving, one step at a time, through the early morning fog. The city buzzed like always. Cars honking, delivery trucks rumbling by, someone playing jazz on a street corner. But everything felt muffled, like I was walking underwater. I ended up at a rundown motel a few blocks from the office building I worked in. The kind of place with flickering neon signs, stained carpets, and a front desk that smelled like stale coffee and regret. The man behind the counter didn't ask questions, just slid me a key and pointed down the hall. Room 214. The lock stuck twice before it clicked open. Inside, the wallpaper was peeling in the corners. The bed creaked when I sat on it. The TV, bolted to the dresser, showed static until I slapped the side of it. A faded Bible sat in the drawer. I didn't open it. I dropped my bag in the corner and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. My hands were still shaking. Not from fear, from disbelief. How had it come to this? A week ago, we were eating takeout on the couch, watching reruns of Jeopardy, and laughing over the dumb answers. And now, I was dead in her eyes. No texts, no calls, nothing. I wasn't just out of the apartment. I'd been erased from the narrative. I stared at my phone, thumb hovering over her name in my contacts. I wanted to call, to yell, to beg, to understand. But I didn't. Because deep down, I knew the truth. If someone can lie about your existence, they were never proud of it in the first place. I lay back on the bed, staring at the stained ceiling tiles. My body felt like lead. My chest burned with a quiet, hollow ache I couldn't name. I wasn't just heartbroken. I was humiliated, diminished, made invisible. But beneath that ache, something else stirred. Anger. Not the kind that explodes, but the kind that simmers low and slow, waiting for the right moment to rise. That night, I didn't dream. I just drifted. Between thoughts, between memories, between the man I used to be and the man I was about to become. When morning came again, I dressed for work. Same boots, same shirt, same route downtown. But something was different. I was different. I'd been buried alive in her lie, but I wasn't going to stay 6 feet under. Not for her. Not for anyone. The next morning, I walked into the building like I always did, through the frayed entrance, badge clipped to my collar, lunch packed in the same beat-up cooler I'd carried for years. The city was waking up fast, and so was the office tower. Elevators dinging. Security guards nodding. The usual current of people who barely noticed the janitor walking past. But this time, I wasn't just tired. I was carrying something different. Heavier than my cleaning supplies. Heavier than my toolbox. Rage. It wasn't loud or wild. It didn't scream. It whispered. Sat deep in my chest, coiled around my ribs. I felt it with every step I took down those polished corridors. I let it fill the silence that used to be her voice. I threw myself into the work. The shine on the lobby floor? That was me. The fingerprint-free glass on the 30th floor windows? Me. Every trash can emptied. Every hallway that smelled like lemon polish, mine. I didn't do it for praise. I never had. But that day, I think I needed to remind myself that I still mattered. That what I touched, what I cleaned, what I made shine was worth something. My crew noticed the shift immediately. Omar gave me a look over his mop handle. "You good, boss?" I just nodded and kept wiping the same spot I'd already cleaned twice. Tony cracked a joke about me applying to be CEO. I half smiled. Didn't laugh. Couldn't. Not yet. But Elena, she didn't say anything. She just watched me. Quiet, careful. Like she could see right through me but knew better than to ask. I was on the 30th floor by 7:15, checking the supply closet, making sure we had enough towels, sprays, gloves. The sun was rising through the giant floor-to-ceiling windows, casting long shadows across the polished tile. The city looked like it was made of gold and glass. Then I heard footsteps behind me. Not the usual light shuffle of a coworker. These were heavier, slower, deliberate. I turned around, and my spine straightened before my mind caught up. Charles Lancaster. Tall, sharp suit. Silver hair slicked back like something out of a Wall Street movie. I'd seen him a few times before, striding through the lobby with purpose, flanked by assistants and investors. But he'd never spoken to me, never even glanced my way. And now here he was, alone, standing 5 feet from me, looking directly at the name tag sewn into my shirt. "You must be the head of cleaning here," he said. I wiped my hands on my pants, heart hammering in my chest. "Yes, sir. That's me." He looked around the hallway. Clean. Quiet. Not a scuff mark in sight. Then he looked back at me. "You've been here how long?" 11 years this spring." He nodded slowly, like he was taking that in. Then, to my surprise, a small smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "My father was a janitor," he said, "before he built all this. Started in a school. Mopped floors every night. Raised 4 kids on a cleaner's wage." I didn't know what to say. I just stared at him, the rag in my hand suddenly feeling like a badge of honor. "Honest work," he continued, "is the foundation of any great business. Without men like you, this place doesn't run." I swallowed hard, caught off guard by the weight of his words. For a moment, I didn't feel invisible. "I appreciate that, sir," I said, voice a little unsteady. He adjusted his cufflinks, nodded once, and walked off, his polished shoes clicking down the same floor I'd scrubbed the night before. He didn't say another word. Didn't have to. I stood there for a long time after he left. That moment, those few sentences, they lit something inside me. Something I didn't realize I'd lost. It didn't undo what Vanessa said. It didn't erase the fact that she would rather fake my death than face her own shame. But it reminded me of something I had forgotten. I mattered. I wasn't just a man with a mop. I was a man with work ethic, pride, consistency. I was the guy who kept the gears turning while the rest of them looked right past me. Back on the 15th floor, Omar caught me wiping down a railing again. "Third time on that one, boss," he said, grinning. "You expecting the queen?" "Something like that," I muttered. He chuckled, went back to sweeping. But me? I was holding on to Charles Lancaster's words like a lifeline. Like maybe I wasn't the ghost Vanessa tried to turn me into. Maybe I was still somebody. I finished my shift strong. Every checklist marked, every corner double-checked. As I walked out of the building that night, the city lights seemed a little brighter. My steps a little steadier. Vanessa had kicked me out of her life. She'd buried me under a lie. But someone else, someone who mattered, had seen me. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like I still had a place in this world. There's a strange kind of peace in routine. You wake up, put your boots on, punch in, scrub the floors, and go home. It's mechanical, predictable. And after everything that had happened, I needed predictable. Needed to know that if I turned left, the mop closet would still be there. If I opened the cabinet, the lemon-scented cleaner would still be waiting. But as I found out that week, even the most familiar spaces can turn into battlegrounds the second you hear the wrong words at the wrong time. It was a Wednesday morning. Quiet. I was up on the 30th floor again. Same hallway, same silence, same early golden light stretching across the glass walls. I was alone in the conference hall, wiping down one of the long oak tables we just had polished last weekend. The wood gleamed under the fluorescent lights, my rag sliding back and forth in slow, practiced circles. That's when I heard them. 2 voices coming from the hallway. I didn't move, just kept wiping. But my ears sharpened. The first voice I recognized instantly, deep, steady, commanding. Charles Lancaster. The other? Younger, confident, smooth. Brandon, his son. The man who was supposed to marry Michelle, Vanessa's sister. I didn't mean to eavesdrop. Not at first. But then I heard my name. Or rather, The version of me Vanessa had created. Tragic story, Charles said. Michelle's sister lost her husband years ago. Car accident, I think. About 10 years back. I froze. My hand gripped the rag so tightly my knuckles turned white. My breath caught somewhere in my chest. My heart started pounding, not with fear, but fury. 10 years? 10 years? I'd been married to Vanessa 7. Working this job 11. There was no accident. No death. No tragedy. There was just a lie. One big, ugly, well-wrapped lie that my wife, and clearly now, her entire family, had been spinning for God knows how long. Brandon responded, calm and casual. Yeah, Michelle told me her sister's husband passed away. Sad, huh? She said it changed Vanessa forever. I backed away from the table, stunned. So that was it. I wasn't just dead for the wedding. I'd been buried for years. I dropped the rag on the table and sat down in one of the leather chairs, my hands trembling. They'd rewritten me out of existence. Out of photos. Out of stories. Out of everything. To them, I wasn't a man who worked hard and loved his wife. I was a footnote. A fable. A convenient sob story for their perfect little image. I pressed my palms to my face, trying to stop the room from spinning. My entire marriage had been reduced to a line in a fictional obituary. Was this Vanessa's plan all along? Had she been planting the seeds from the beginning, little comments, fake tears, gentle omissions, preparing to erase me the second I no longer fit into the glossy version of life she was chasing? The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. Her family never liked me. Her father barely shook my hand the day we got married. Her mother looked at me like I tracked mud into their world every time I opened my mouth. And Michelle? She smiled with her teeth, not her eyes. Always had. And Vanessa, she let them believe it. She let them look down on me. She let them see me as less. But this was something else. She had fabricated my death. For 10 years, they told the story of the tragic widow Vanessa Hayes, who lost her humble husband in a car crash and rebuilt herself. It gave her sympathy, depth, a new identity free of the blue-collar man she used to come home to. And I'd been walking these halls every damn day, wiping their tables, scrubbing their floors, breathing the same air as the people who thought I'd died. The betrayal slammed into me like a freight train, not just from her, but from the entire facade I thought I'd been part of. The marriage, the family dinners, the late-night laughs, none of it was real. None of it survived her shame. I picked up the rag and started wiping the table again, furious, obsessive. It was already spotless, but I needed something to do. I needed to scrub the stain from my soul, even if I couldn't see it. I wiped and wiped until my arms burned. What was I supposed to do with this? Walk into her apartment and confront her? Shout at her sister during her wedding toast? March into the reception and announce that the ghost had returned? No, because now I understood the game she was playing. A widow gets pity. A divorcee married to a janitor? That's scandal. She didn't just want to be rid of me. She wanted a clean story. Something elegant. Something tragic. Something that made her the victim. And me? I was the dirt on her shoes. But the thing about dirt is it doesn't disappear. It just waits. Until someone turns on the light. As I leaned against the window, the city stretching out before me, one thing became clear. She buried me once. She wouldn't get to do it again. I planned to disappear that weekend. No work. No calls. No city noise. Just me, the hum of the motel mini fridge, and a pizza I probably couldn't afford. I turned my phone on silent, closed the blinds tight, and told myself I didn't give a damn what happened at that wedding. Vanessa could spin her perfect tale to the Lancasters, cry her crocodile tears, play the grieving widow in a designer dress, and I wouldn't be there to see it. Wouldn't give her the satisfaction of knowing I still cared. But the thing about lies is, they're like termites. Sooner or later, the whole house starts to crumble. It started with one phone call. I was sitting on the edge of the bed, half watching some late-night rerun when the screen lit up. Her name glowed like a warning flare. Vanessa. I stared at it, my heart suddenly pounding. I didn't answer. Let it ring out. She called again. Then again. I let them all go to voicemail, jaw clenched tight, stomach twisting like it was trying to crawl up my throat. Then a new name popped up. Michelle. I laughed, bitter and sharp. Now that was Rich. The same woman who smiled through her teeth every time she saw me. The one who watched Vanessa like a hawk when I showed up to family dinners with grease on my knuckles. Why the hell would she be calling me? Decline. Then Vanessa's mom. Then a cousin I hadn't spoken to since our wedding. What the hell was going on? The calls didn't stop. They started stacking up, missed calls, voicemails, texts flooding in like a tidal wave. My phone buzzed like a dying wasp on the nightstand. I snatched it up, turned the sound off, tossed it back on the bed. And still, it vibrated. Again and again. I picked it up one more time, just to shut it down completely, and there it was. Vanessa. Again. The fourth time. Something in me paused. The part of me that still remembered her laugh at 2 a.m., her head on my chest. The part of me I hated still existed. I swiped to answer. What? I snapped, my voice rougher than I meant it to be. There was a pause. Then her voice came through, shaky, broken, like I hadn't heard it in years. Daniel, please. Please come to the wedding. I almost dropped the phone. I let out a breathless laugh, standing up, pacing across the thin motel carpet. Come again? Didn't you say I was dead? I was wrong, she said quickly. I messed up. Just, please. I need you to come. I stopped walking, the phone pressed tight to my ear. You need me? Since when do dead men get invites? There was sobbing on the other end, soft and desperate. Everything is falling apart, she choked out. Michelle's freaking out. Brandon's threatening to leave. Please, just come. I'll explain when you get here. The line went dead. Just like that. No explanation. No apology. No detail. I stared at the phone like it might start laughing at me. The gall of her. The absolute gall. After everything she'd done, telling her entire world I was a ghost, signing the divorce papers with a note that said don't contact me again, now she wanted me to show up and fix it? I should have stayed in that motel room. I should have ignored it all. Let her drown in the very lies she dug herself into. But something kept buzzing in my chest. Curiosity. Spite. Maybe some dying fragment of the man who once loved her. Whatever it was, it dragged me to the closet. I pulled on my old denim jacket, the one Vanessa always said made me look too working class. It still smelled like soap and machine oil. I sipped it up and looked at myself in the mirror above the sink. Tired. Hardened. Alive. I stepped out into the cold, flagged down a cab I couldn't afford, and told the driver one word. Fairmont. The city blurred by in shades of gray and neon. My fingers twitched in my lap. My knee bounced. I wasn't ready. Not for her. Not for the people who thought I was some tragic footnote in her fairy tale. But I had to see it. Had to see what kind of fire could make the woman who buried me come clawing back. As we pulled up to the entrance, all stone pillars and glowing chandeliers, I felt my stomach drop. This was it. The place where Vanessa's lies were supposed to be sealed with champagne and roses. But now? Now the walls were starting to crack, and I was the ghost walking straight through them. The Fairmont Hotel loomed ahead like a cathedral of glass and money. Marble pillars, glittering chandeliers, valets in suits that probably cost more than my entire closet. The kind of place that never even noticed a guy like me. The kind of place where lies looked better than the truth. The taxi stopped at the curb. I paid in crumpled bills, stepped out, and felt the weight of it all settle onto my shoulders like cold stone. This wasn't my world, but I'd been summoned back into it, like some specter from a life Vanessa had tried to burn to the ground. The moment I walked through those golden doors, I knew something was wrong. The air was too still, the music too soft. Whispers floated like smoke around the marble lobby. Heads turned, eyes locked on me. It was like someone had spotted a ghost. And maybe they had. I kept walking, slow and steady, my boots echoing across the polished floor. I stuffed my hands into the pockets of the denim jacket Vanessa used to hate and stared straight ahead. Then I saw her. Vanessa, rushing toward me like the storm she'd tried to bury. Her heels clicked across the marble, her dress wrinkled, mascara running down her face. Her hair, once perfect, now clung to her cheeks in damp strands. Her eyes, those hazel eyes I used to get lost in, were wide and frantic. Daniel, she gasped, grabbing my arm with shaking hands. Thank God you're here. I pulled back slightly, frowning. What's going on, Vanessa? She glanced around like the walls themselves might be listening, then leaned in close. They know, she whispered, her breath hot against my ear. Brandon knows. His father knows. Everyone knows. I blinked. Knows what? She swallowed hard, trembling. That you're not dead. That I lied. That. I made it all up. I stared at her, trying to make sense of what she was saying. How? Charles confronted us, she said quickly, eyes darting. He overheard something, looked into it. I don't know. But Brandon, he's furious. He's threatening to call off the wedding. A cold wave crashed over me. All this time, all these lies, and now they were unraveling. Not because she told the truth. Not because guilt finally caught up to her. But because she got caught. I crossed my arms, my voice flat. So your lie blew up. And now what? Her voice cracked. Please, Daniel, you have to help me fix this. I almost laughed. The sound clawed its way up my throat, bitter and sharp. Me? Fix it. You told everyone I was dead. Signed me out of your life like a form you didn't want to file. And now you want me to walk in there and patch things up like the dutiful husband. I was scared, she whispered, tears spilling again. Scared of what they'd think. Scared they'd judge me. I thought it'd be easier if you were just gone. Easier, I repeated, the word like broken glass on my tongue. You didn't just erase me, Vanessa. You rewrote me. She wrapped her arms around herself, shrinking in front of me. Her once proud posture now crumpled. I didn't mean for it to get this far, she sobbed. I just wanted them to see me differently, to respect me. I stepped back, shaking my head slowly. You wanted their respect so badly you gave up mine. And now you've got neither. The lobby around us buzzed with energy, curious eyes, whispering voices. But in that moment, we were locked in our own little bubble of collapse. She reached for me again. Please, Daniel, just help me. One more time. I stared at her hand on my sleeve. That touch used to mean safety. Home. Now it felt like shackles. You made this bed, I said quietly. Now lie in it. I turned to walk away. And yet, I didn't. I should have kept going. Let the walls fall. Let her wedding crumble under the weight of her own deception. But something in me, pride, maybe curiosity, maybe some final ember of the man I used to be, held me in place. I looked at her again, saw the panic in her eyes, the desperation in her voice. And I nodded. Fine, I said, voice low. Let's see this through. Her face lit up with relief as she grabbed my arm again and pulled me toward the ballroom. The doors opened, and I stepped into a silence so thick it could suffocate a scream. All eyes turned. The guests, dressed in tuxedos and designer gowns, stood frozen. Waiters paused mid-step. Someone dropped a glass. And at the front of the room, beneath a canopy of flowers and chandeliers, stood Brandon Lancaster and his father, Charles. Charles's face was a mask of steel. Brandon looked like a bomb waiting to go off. Michelle stood next to him, pale as a ghost in her wedding dress. Charles stepped forward, his voice calm but cutting. So, he said, eyes locked on mine. You're the man I was told had been dead for 10 years. I met his gaze without flinching. Yes, sir, I said. But as you can see, I'm very much alive. And just like that, the entire room held its breath. And the lie that had kept me buried began to collapse around us. You could have heard a pin drop. The chandelier above us glittered like ice, casting fractured light across the stunned faces in the room. Guests held their champagne flutes like they were frozen in time, unsure whether to sip or shatter them. I could feel Vanessa behind me, her breath shaky, her presence shrinking more and more with every passing second. But I wasn't looking at her anymore. I was looking at Charles Lancaster, the man who once shook my hand in a supply closet and told me my work mattered. Now, he stood at the front of a room full of high society elites, his eyes locked on me with an intensity that cut deeper than judgment. It was truth-seeking. Brandon, his son, stepped forward next. His jaw was clenched so tight I thought he might shatter a tooth. His gaze bounced from me to Vanessa, then landed hard on Michelle, who stood trembling in her designer gown. I took a breath. Deep. Steady. And I told them everything. I wasn't in a car accident. I wasn't dead. I wasn't anything except inconvenient to the woman I married. My voice rang out, stronger than I expected. She didn't want her family knowing she married a janitor. So she buried me in a lie and walked away without looking back. Gasps. Whispers. A ripple of discomfort spread through the crowd. I turned slightly and gestured toward Vanessa without even looking at her. She signed divorce papers and left a note that said, "Don't contact me again. It's better this way." That's the kind of person we're talking about. Michelle's mouth fell open. Brandon's face darkened. "Did you know about this?" he asked her, voice low and dangerous. Michelle shook her head frantically. I mean, I knew she said he was gone. I thought he'd passed, Brandon. I didn't know it was a lie. I swear. You thought? He repeated, voice rising. You thought he was dead and never questioned it? You let your sister manipulate everyone. Me. And you went along with it like it was nothing. Michelle's voice cracked. I didn't think it mattered. Mattered? Brandon snapped. You think I'd marry into a family that treats people like they're disposable? That buries the truth because it doesn't look good in a photo album. Tears spilled from her eyes. She tried to reach for him, but Brandon took a step back. I refused to marry into a lie. And just like that, the wedding was off. The crowd gasped again, louder this time. Someone dropped a glass. I heard the faint shuffle of someone slipping out the door. The illusion cracked and fell apart before our eyes. Vanessa was crying now, full-on sobbing, but I didn't turn around. I didn't offer comfort. I had done that for years. My back was straight, my heart steady, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like the ground beneath me wasn't going to give out. That's when Charles Lancaster stepped forward. He didn't say anything at first, just stared at me like he was seeing something he didn't expect. Then he nodded slowly. "You're the custodian at my building, aren't you?" he asked. I nodded. "Yes, sir. You're the one who keeps the place spotless. Who fixed the elevator panel last month when the service team didn't show. Who helped Elena when she slipped in the lobby. That was you." "Yes, sir," I said again, quieter this time. He nodded once more. "That took guts, coming here. Standing up in front of all this. A man who takes pride in his work and speaks the truth, even when it costs him something. That's the kind of man I want working for me." The room went still again, but this time, it was a different kind of silence. "I want you to come work for me directly," Charles said. "Head of Facilities Management for Lancaster Holdings. Better pay, better hours, more responsibility. You've earned it." I blinked. Had I heard that right? Vanessa let out a soft gasp behind me, but I didn't turn around. I looked Charles Lancaster in the eye, my throat dry, my heart pounding. "You serious?" He offered a small smile. "Dead serious. Think about it. Let me know Monday." And with that, he turned to walk away. I stood there stunned. Vanessa stepped closer. Her hand touched my sleeve. "Daniel," she said, her voice trembling. "Please." I looked at her. Tears streaked her makeup. Her perfect image ruined. Her life, once polished and controlled, now cracked wide open. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean for this to happen. I was just trying to be someone they could admire." "You didn't mean for me to happen," I said flatly. "You wanted me gone the moment I didn't match the dream. And now that your lie's burning down the house, you come running to the man you buried." "Please," she begged. "Forgive me." I pulled my sleeve from her grip. "This isn't about forgiveness," I said. "This is about consequence." I turned away, leaving her standing in the middle of a ruined wedding. Guests whispering. Michelle sobbing. Brandon gone. Her lie exposed. And me? I walked through the doors. Head high. Back straight. Not her shadow anymore. Not her shame. Just Daniel Hayes. Alive, steady, and finally walking into something that looked a hell of a lot like respect. The doors of the Fairmont closed behind me with a soft, final click. Outside, the night air hit my face like a baptism, cool, sharp, and clean. I paused on the steps, staring out at the city that had once swallowed me whole. Now, I stood taller than I ever had within it. Behind me, the wedding was collapsing. But in front of me, something else was opening up. A new life. Vanessa's voice echoed faintly behind me, calling my name. I didn't turn around. I did know her that not anymore. She'd had her chance. She'd buried me in a lie to impress people who wouldn't even remember her name in 5 years. And tonight, that lie was laid bare for everyone to see. She'd lost everything. And me? I'd gained something I didn't even realize I was missing. I didn't take a cab this time. I walked. Past the glittering lights, past the rows of parked luxury cars, past the people outside still buzzing with secondhand scandal. I walked through it all like a man reborn, one foot in front of the other, breathing deep, feeling the weight on my chest slowly start to lift. By the time I reached the motel, my boots were scuffed and my legs ached, but my mind was sharp, clear. I stood outside room 214 and looked at the peeling numbers for a long second before going in. That room had been my tomb, but now it was just a place I wouldn't need for much longer. I looked down at my phone. No new messages. No more calls. Good. She had finally stopped trying. I changed into something comfortable, sat at the edge of the bed, and stared at the envelope sitting on the dresser, the divorce papers. I'd signed them weeks ago. But tonight, for the first time, I wasn't haunted by that decision. I wasn't wondering what might have been. I wasn't aching for what I'd lost. Because I hadn't lost anything worth keeping. I'd lost her, yes, but the truth was, I'd lost her long before that wedding ever happened. Probably the first time she winced when I mentioned what I did for a living. Probably the first time she corrected me in front of her friends. Probably the first time she smiled too big when I stayed quiet in a room full of her family. All those little betrayals, they weren't small. They were the foundation of the collapse. And now it had come crumbling down in a ballroom full of strangers. I lay back on the bed, hands behind my head, staring at the water-stained ceiling. My heart wasn't racing anymore. My breath came easy. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't doubting. I was done. Weeks passed. I moved out of the motel and into a small apartment overlooking the bay. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. Clean. Quiet. A place where no one looked at me like I needed fixing. And I took the job. Head of facilities management at Lancaster Holdings. Charles Lancaster had kept his word. He didn't just give me a promotion, he gave me respect. My own office. A team that looked to me for leadership. A salary that didn't just pay the bills, it built something. Omar, Tony, and Elena still worked with me. They laughed when they saw me in a collared shirt, teased me about turning corporate. But their smiles said it all. They were proud of me. Hell, I was proud of me. I never expected to end up here. Not after being told I wasn't good enough. Not after being erased like a typo in someone else's fairy tale. But maybe that's what made it sweeter. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. And then, one evening, the past came knocking again. I just finished checking over schedules when the buzzer on my apartment door buzzed. I wasn't expecting anyone. I pressed the intercom. Yeah. A pause. Then her voice. Vanessa. Daniel, it's me. Can I come up? Every muscle in my body tensed. I should have said no. But something in her voice, small, broken, made me pause. I buzzed her in. When she arrived, she looked smaller than I remembered. Less polished. No makeup. No perfect curls. Just a coat too thin for the weather and hands that trembled at her sides. Hi, she said softly. I didn't smile. What do you want? I needed to talk. I've lost everything, Daniel. Michelle won't speak to me. My mom blamed me for the wedding falling apart. I got fired from the boutique. And I can't stop thinking about you. I let her talk. I let her pour out every excuse, every regret, every late realization she should have had years ago. And when she was done, I looked her in the eye and told her the truth. You weren't ashamed of me, I said. You were ashamed of yourself. You thought you could build a better life by cutting me out. But all you did was carve out your own foundation. And now you're the one standing in the rubble. Tears filled her eyes. I still love you. No, Vanessa. You loved what I could do for you. You loved me most when I stayed silent. When I worked hard and never made a scene. But I'm not that man anymore. She reached for me. I stepped back. You don't get to come back just because you're alone. And then I opened the door. She hesitated and walked out. I closed it behind her. This time, the click felt like freedom. The next morning, I stood on my balcony, coffee in hand, watching the sun rise over the bay. The city stretched out before me, loud, alive, full of opportunity. I wasn't dead. I wasn't buried. I was Daniel Hayes, alive, steady, and finally free. And if there's one thing I've learned through all of this, it's that worth isn't measured by titles, bank accounts, or tailored suits. It's measured in honesty, resilience, and the way you carry yourself when the world tries to tear you down. I spent years thinking love meant sacrificing pieces of who I was to keep someone else comfortable. But real love, it never asks you to disappear. To anyone listening, especially those who've walked through long marriages, quiet sacrifices, and invisible labor, don't ever let someone make you feel small for living a humble, honest life. Don't let the world shame you for the years you spent building something with your hands, raising a family, showing up when no one else did. If someone doesn't see your value, that's not your failure. That's their blindness. I may have lost a marriage, but I found something far more lasting, my dignity. So keep walking. Shoulders back. Head high. You've lived too long, worked too hard, and loved too deep to ever let someone bury you in silence. Because you're not done yet. You're still here. And you still matter.